I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Everyone, I am Rachel, and you are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, sex, relationships, and self-love. Hope everybody's doing great. I am recording this from my brand new apartment. It is the first time that I am living somewhere by myself, and I've been telling people this for the past few weeks, but I just feel like the amount of time that you have between when you move out of your parents and, when you move in with a partner, assuming that you eventually do move in with a partner, and it's totally cool if you don't, is so little, that amount of time. Like, there's just not that much. It's like, maybe your 20s, and in the span of your entire life, that is not a lot of time. And so my personal philosophy is, live it up. And if you can have your own space, if that is something that you are able to do, I encourage it, and I totally understand if you can't. Not everybody is able to do that for whatever reason. I'm loving it though. I had friends come over and help put my bookshelves together yesterday, and it's finally starting to feel like home. So very excited about that. This episode 31, is coming out the day after my 31st birthday. Very exciting. And I don't know, I just feel like that's important. Like, that means something. 31st episode, 31st year on this earth. And I kind of like to treat my birthday like my own personal new year. It's my solar return. And so, I use it as a time to kind of look forward, think about what I want, what goals I want to set, and what I want out of my life, and what emotions I want to feel, what are my values. And I feel like I've done a ton of work in 2021, so I know I have a lot of challenges coming ahead, but I'm also super excited for the things that I have lined up. This apartment is just the first step. So I briefly wanted to touch on, everybody knows that I love Esther Perel. Esther Perel is doing a cool thing on foreplay, how important it is, and how important it is to build anticipation, how important it is to create that connection. I mean, there's a lot of physical reasons why it's important too. We've definitely talked before about how difficult it is for people with vaginas to come from just penetration, especially if there isn't a lot of foreplay from the get-go. So she's doing a cool free audio series called The Art of Foreplay. It's over 7 days. And so you can go to bitly.com/7 days for play. And that's 7, the number. Super cool. I signed up. The first day was yesterday, May 20th. So yeah, check that out. I love Esther Perel. I think that she is the coolest and just speaks, everything that comes out of her mouth is gold. So I'm super excited to check this out, and you should check it out too, and let me know what you think about it. Today's guest for the 31st episode is Heather, the creator, founder, CEO of PleazeMe, PleazeMe.com. Holy shit, I'm so excited about this. Heather is the most awesome human being. One of my favorite interviews that I've done this far. I feel like I say that about every interview. I'm just really #blessed to talk to a lot of really neat people. So we'll talk about how she came up with this idea, but PleazeMe is a platform. It's kind of like a social media, but for sex stuff. I feel like all sex educators and people who are involved in the industry should have a presence on PleazeMe. I feel like it's the future. So what you do is you're going to go on to PleazeMe.com, and there is a referral code. I'll get to that in a little bit. And what it'll have you do first is to take a quiz. It's a really cool quiz, really in depth. It's not just like, kind of surface level questions. It asks you all about the nitty gritty, which is great. That's what we want to get into. It will then put you into one of 7 worlds. And the worlds are just kind of like what turns you on? What are the things that get you going? What's the atmosphere like that turns you on the most? What's the type of play? That type of thing. So I'm a Zeta, and you'll figure out what that means once we get into it. The entire PleazeMe team is really cool. I've spoken with a number of them. I had a training on how to use the platform. It has articles. You can follow people. There are sex stores there's a sex store based on, and you can separate it based on to which world you're in. So like if you're in a world that's really into kind of like BDSM, there might be more floggers or things for bondage in that particular subset of the store. Really awesome. And you know what? It's all anonymous. It's a place for people to explore their sexuality, discover what they like without the fear of judgment. So I have my own personal page, but you can't find me there because it's anonymous. But what I also have is a channel. I have a channel. There's a Wine Dine 69 pod channel, wine_dine_69_pod. So you can find me there. And it's just a place to publish articles. There are recommendations for different porns. There are chat rooms where you can chat with other people who are in your same world, or maybe people who are in a different world from you. It's so cool. I love everything about it. It is an uncensored channel, but they take, safety really seriously. And yeah, so what you get from me, we'll start getting into the referral link. If you use the referral link that I give you, and I'm not going to give it to you verbally because it's a mixture of like letters and numbers. So find me on social media because I will be posting the referral link there. What you get, so of course I get something out of it. Otherwise I wouldn't be telling you about it. But you will get 3 months of VIP access, and VIP access, you can get a lot more than just like the basic. You can look at other worlds and not just be involved in your own world. So cool. All you need to do is register using my channel link, and then you'll get a notification with a reminder to link. So be sure to link to the Wine Dine 69 pod channel. This is so cool, everyone. I am obsessed with it. I have made some really cool connections. I've had a lot of my friends in real life check it out. They all think it's pretty neat. So yeah, check it out. Follow me on all of the social medias to figure out what the referral link is and go from there. And hey, drop me a email, Wine Dine, all ports open, and let me know what you think of the site, what your world is. If you were surprised by the result. I can't say enough about it. The first time that I saw this site, I almost started crying, and I called my partner, so excited, and was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. So thank you so much, Heather, for introducing me to this amazing site of yours, this amazing idea. And thank you for, allowing me to become a channel. I've already started sending some people to PleazeMe just because I think it's cool. And like I said, I think that every person that's in this industry should be on it. It's going to be big, guys. So, all right. Well, we're going to get into the episode with Heather. Everybody, enjoy. Let me know what you think. Rate, review, subscribe, and follow me on all the social medias. More things coming up this summer. And yeah, everyone, go outside. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy, if you've been vaccinated, not wearing a mask. Things are good. Life is good. And it's important to smile and be grateful. All right, everyone. I will talk to you next time.
Do you find yourself struggling between the choices of playing the latest video games you got for Christmas or debating Aunt Fanny about religion over Christmas dinner?
Do you find yourself trying to work video games into your school papers, Sunday sermon, or next book proposal?
Do you wish you had more people to argue with about the hidden philosophical meaning of your favorite RPG?
Well then, nerds, we are the podcast for you.
No Avatars Allowed is a podcast about video games, theology, and all things cultural and intellectual.
Oh, and we talk about sex a lot, too.
Our hosts Rachel Dalton, Ben Wallace, and Joshua Wise figure out each week how on earth to cram video games into some kind of bigger discussion.
And mostly, we make it work.
Check us out every Saturday morning on allportsopen.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So grab your controller, that unused copy of Thomas Aquinas that's sitting on your shelf, and maybe a negligee, and come join us for what is certain to be an interesting and strange conversation on No Avatars Allowed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wine, Dine, and 69. I am here with my guest today, Heather. Heather, I am so excited to talk to you today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Rachel. I'm excited to talk to you today as well.
I went onto your website, the website that we're going to be talking about today, PleazeMe, PleazeMe.com. And I wanted to cry because I was so happy with what I saw. It is exactly what I want in this world, and I'm just shocked that it exists.
Oh, I got goosebumps everywhere. Now you're going to make me cry.
It's like what I want with this podcast. I just want people to have an open space to talk about these things. So I am super stoked that it exists and that you're here to talk with me about it.
Yay. Well, the truth is I needed it. And that's why I created it. So, they say when you do something because you really care and you want to help others, then it kind of comes off that way too, hopefully.
Definitely. Yeah. And I can see it. It's definitely a labor of love. So why don't we start with that? Tell me about yourself and how did you get into doing this?
Well, about myself, that's always so fun to answer, right? I grew up in the Midwest and
me too.
Did you? Yeah, Minnesota, actually.
Michigan for me.
Very nice. I've skied there.
Yeah.
And in a born again Christian, pretty, I guess you would say, conservative family. And fast forward, I've had 2 marriages. I have 2 beautiful boys, 22 and 13, and 2 divorces, and spent a lot of my adult life as a single mom and trying to figure out, how to not recreate a pattern.
Sure.
How to have the relationship of my dreams and still have a beautiful, my 2 sons thriving and, through a divorce, and how to have the sex life I never really had in my 2 marriages. And it really wasn't my partner's fault. I, was taught growing up that masturbation was wrong and not to do it. And sex was only for people you love after you get married. And so it really wasn't a environment. And I love my parents and I know they meant all the best, but we just really didn't have a lot of education or learning. And I didn't really feel very equipped to be a partner in somebody's life sexually, for sure. And so I guess I just got really fed up with having sex be a negative impact on my life, if that makes sense. Because if I did go have a one night stand, I felt incredibly shameful about it, for days afterwards. And I would go long periods of time without having sex because I'm a mom with 2 kids and, that had to come first. And how do I balance everything? And if I do, I'm just going to feel guilty. And I didn't have a lot of time to date. And so there was so much really going on there, and it wasn't enhancing my happiness. It was detracting from it because I wanted someone in my life. I wanted to have a loving relationship. I wanted to have great sex, and I wanted to be a good mother and a great mother and have business. But it just seemed like it was always, that was the thing that was slipping through my fingers and just not working. And so I was like, I want to do something about that. And when I went about to try to find my way of exploring my sexuality, whether that be on the internet or in real life, I just felt like those were just neither really giving me what I needed, which part of that was some anonymity. Like I wanted, it's a private enterprise. It's not because of shame, but I just, I don't have sex in a restaurant because there's people around.
Right.
So
some people might be into that.
Some people might be into that, but most of us don't. And so why would I want to talk about my sex and sexuality on a public social media forum? Like it just sounded to me like having sex in a restaurant. And so I guess one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this whole concept as a download in the middle of the night. So either it was given to me by a higher power, or my mind is incredibly powerful while I'm sleeping and I just don't know about it. And so I kind of really freaked me out because I was like working in health and wellness and natural therapies for increasing our longevity, even though I did completely realize that mental and emotional health was part of the triad, right? And as much as I could get people physically healthy, if they were mentally and emotionally struggling, that was still not, wholeness, real health. And so after 5 years of staring at it, I took a trek up Mount Kilimanjaro with 18 other women to talk about women, empowering their wellness and self-care. And I just decided to leave the fear on the mountain. And when I came back, I put the plans together and started building PleazeMe.
That's incredible. I love that. And I love that it is a thing that just came to you because it really is, if I'm looking at the site, it's a mixture of like Facebook, but also like kind of FetLife, but it's so many things. There's some Twitter components too. So like where did all these different kind of parts come in to form, what is now the website?
Well, I really just looked to solve the problem of anonymity. But by solving the problem of anonymity in a social media type platform, I came up with other problems, meaning when you and I join PleazeMe, we're not able to go on and look for each other as friends because that, of course, spoils the anonymity, right? And the whole idea is that you have this platform. But then, so how do I get content that people would want, and how are they going to make friends and find friends and follow friends? And so part of in the way that we designed it and created it, those other mechanisms that seem similar to Twitter or seem similar to Instagram or seem similar to a blog, if you will, were really more designed for the anonymous member to be able to have different ways to access information and meet other people and find channels to follow since they're anonymous. And we also just really we realized as we were building it, that all of these platforms are censoring sex and sexuality and these great providers like yourself who have podcasts and people who are thought leaders or educators or doctors are getting their posts deleted and their Instagrams and stuff shut down. So we needed to create a place where those people that are supporting sexual wellness and pleasure have the tools they need to share their message and their business and their thought leadership and their products in a manner that's easy for consumers, ourselves, or people to get what they want, right? Like I liked reading articles sometimes, but other times I wanted to watch a video, but other times I just wanted to talk with somebody else who'd been through it and ask a question. So I needed to be able to have a place where all of that could live. And they didn't have to leave because other places won't allow it.
Yeah, that's it's been really interesting trying to run advertisements for a podcast called Wine, Dine, and 69 on social media. The robots do not like it.
They don't like a lot of things.
They really do.
Yeah.
Really. So on the note of anonymity, anonymity.
It's a tough one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in Finding Nemo. See anemone. How can the nature of anonymity lead to sexual exploration?
Well, I think that a lot of times we may be curious about something, or we may have a fantasy about something, or even maybe we have a relationship issue, right, with our partner, meaning there's some barrier to our sex being good, or don't really know how to communicate what I want without making him feel inadequate. I'm like nervous about it. But who do I ask? I don't want to necessarily always ask my partner. And if I go on Facebook and just post a blanket message, well, then everybody knows my partner and I are having sexual problems. Or if I want to explore something that might be considered to some people taboo or wrong, meaning like anal play. Some people in some religions think that's absolutely death, is the end consequence if you get caught sodomizing. That's what used to call it. And I don't mean in a rape environment. I mean, two consenting adults, of course. And so I might want to research that, but I don't really know how I feel about it yet. I don't want to let everybody know I'm researching that because I don't know how I feel about it yet. And I may never want to tell anybody how I feel about it. And that's what consent is all about. And I think that these public forums have really, the biggest lie in the world is I agree and accept the terms and conditions of this website, because none of us read them. but
Right.
but in all actuality, what we've done is we've given away our consent for them to use our information and share our information. And then we've also given consent to everybody that we friend to see everything that we post. And so unless I'm just sending a private message to one person who is still somebody that I know, everyone gets to hear what I'm saying. And so I just don't think that everybody is entitled to our own personal journeys. I think that things are private for a reason, and that anonymity allows you to say, okay, it's still private. Nobody knows it's me that's asking the question. So it's the reason why many of us listen to podcasts, because we're listening. Nobody knows we're listening. We're not talking. We're not identifying ourselves. But then we can't really ask a question there, right? Which is why a lot of podcasters love to have a channel on PleazeMe, because their followers can go in there and ask them the question. And they still have their anonymity, just like they do when they listen to the podcast. So I just think it's much more freeing, and it allows us to have that exploration if we want it, because a lot of us do want it, but then we're afraid to do it because of being found out, if you will, or somebody thinking poorly of us. We're worried about what other people think, whether we like it or not, we are.
Right.
And in some cases, it's smart, because you don't necessarily need your boss in every detail of your sexual life, especially if you're of the opposite sex. It makes it awkward, right?
Definitely. Yeah. No, I think that's a big point.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm really excited for you to walk me through the different sexual worlds on PleazeMe.
Yay.
So I don't know where you usually start with that, if there's like a chronological order, but yeah, go ahead and walk me through.
Well, I think it's important to note that, like you said, there's so much there, and I really wanted it to be a place for everyone, regardless of what you like in bed, because sometimes we don't just judge each other for having sex, but the way we're having sex, right?
Right.
If I'm sadomasochist and you're vanilla, these are terms that are widely used. We try to stay away from that because people tend to have judgment. But I might say you're boring, and you might say, well, you're sick and weird, right? if because we're so vastly different in what, and you don't understand that world and why I like it, right? Because why would you? You've never had to be a part of it. You don't have any frame of reference for it. And so I wanted, and I also just really felt like I didn't identify as either vanilla or kink. Those
I
two
relate to that.
words, I was like, I didn't feel comfortable. I was interested after reading 50 Shades of Grey of exploring some sensation play and some giving up of control, and, exploring pain for pleasure in a small way. But I didn't feel comfortable jumping on FetLife. I just didn't. It was too much, right? Like, it was too big of a jump for me. And so where do I go? And I didn't really feel like, other than FetLife, there really wasn't a place for, and that's like 15% of the population that's interested into BDSM, maybe 20.
Right, yeah.
So where does the other 80% go when they want to have a platform to talk about sex and sexuality? But then I also could understand that I don't like seeing things that I don't want to see, especially when I'm there to feel comfortable and start to have sex positive. So I wanted to make sure that when people got to their world, that the content that was in that world would be what they wanted, right? As opposed to seeing, oh God, I didn't want to see that, kind of a thing. So I decided that there was much more than just kink and vanilla. And I thought there would be really kind of more of a graduated way to tippy toe your way outside the bedroom into more and more adventure, if you want to call it that. And that doesn't mean that somebody that doesn't want those things as an adventurous, but I'm saying to, go out and explore new worlds.
Right.
So the first world is, I guess if you want to start with the basics and the more conventional things, would be Alara. And then there's Lynx, which is actually the biggest world on PleazeMe by the number of people. And that's, they like to maybe try a little role play, or they might be interested in being blindfolded, or maybe silk ties on the hands, but not necessarily heavy restriction, but a little bit of that anticipation. Maybe they like a light spanking. They like spanking, but don't get a paddle out. Like I'm not,
Right.
wanting to be tied up to the cross and do a whole scene. I just want a little sensation down there to get me excited. So that's links. And then you go into Zeta, which actually I should probably save to last, because really Zeta is the world where maybe you like to explore it all, but you don't live in dom sub situation. You don't only just have conventional sex, or you don't, you're wanting to try Tantra and Kama Sutra. You're wanting to maybe even do a little bit of fetish play. Like, so each world like adds to the last. And I think as you get a little deeper into the worlds, maybe Alara, maybe you're not having conventional sex that much, right? Meaning everybody always has sex, but that's it, that there's nothing else added, right?
Okay, got it.
They're usually always adding something in order for them to really feel, like they're getting what they want in bed and are satisfied. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a Zeta, so that's interesting to know that kind of is like the all-encompassing one.
Me too. And it doesn't mean that you do everything. It just means that you definitely like to explore a little BDSM, but you don't necessarily live there, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there are like the Vega and Triton and Janus. Is that am I saying
Yeah,
that right?
Janus is the basically the 50 Shades of Grey. It's you're either a dom and you're a sub, and that's the way you live your life. Like that's how your sex works, right? And those, like, if anybody that saw 50 Shades of Grey, Christian Grey is like, no, this is what I am. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. I'm not deviating from that. And then Vega is like our Viva Las Vegas, kind of like the performers, the people that like to wear latex, and they have more like the fetishes, that foot fetishes, or, very particular pony fetish, or there's baby doll fetish. I mean, there's all kinds of fetishes out there. And then you could think it, they could just be, being treated like an ashtray is a fetish, if you can believe that. So, I just wouldn't have thought of that because I didn't know. And so,
yeah, go figure.
Go figure. And then there's Triton, which is basically extreme pain for pleasure, or sadomasochism. And that's what they want. And if they don't have that, then they're not really fulfilled. And that's their life, and it's their world, and they should have everything that they want in it, right? And so each of the worlds is meant to be like that. It's like, that's okay, whatever your sex and sexuality is. We're not here to judge you. We're here to give you tools to improve this area of your life, and resources, and access to other people who you can ask questions to, and still have that anonymity. And then there's Avior, which is the tantric Kama Sutra. Really, I'm into that energy exchange, and that's what sex is for me. And it's, keeping back from having an orgasm, as an example, as part of some of the tantric practices.
Oh, sure. Like some edge play.
Yeah, edge play. Exactly. And see, I'm a Zeta. I love edge play, but I don't necessarily always do it.
Right.
So that's the worlds. And really the goal was, and we named them after planets and stars in the galaxy, because we didn't want people to come in with a judgment on themselves.
Yeah.
We wanted them to have an open mind, and here's your symbol, and here's your color, and here's your world, and go check it out. See what that means. Eventually we could wear a necklace that's like a little, like in astrology, that's a charm that has your sex sign on it. And somebody who's in PleazeMe will go, oh, you're a Zeta, like it's a conversation starter. And a way to kind of talk about sex and sexuality too. And what does that mean? Oh, you're in Link, so we have some similarities. I like role play. I like, it kind of helps to open up, I think, in a fun way, the conversation.
Definitely. And that's a cool thing that I really like about the site too, is that when you look at your world, it kind of shows you the different worlds that might be compatible with yours. So I think I'm looking here. If I go to the Zeta world, I think it says that Lynx and Janus might be good.
Yeah, depending on how much depending on how much you like the dom sub. I mean, it depends, right? So you would look at your world, and as you're exploring in your pleasure map and you get to see those two, you might go, well, that's true. Lynx could be good for me, but maybe not Janus. Or the opposite. You could be like, no, I actually like a little bit more of the BDSM than I do the role play. So I'm going to stick with Zeta and Janus, right? But yes, it helps you to understand where you might have more compatibility.
Is there I guess I'm wondering, do you know if there's a majority or statistics like more men than women on the site?
Oh
And like
yeah, I have all of them.
where does that fall?
Yeah, so I'm a woman, of course, and I designed this for women primarily. Initially, that's what I wanted, was something for women because I felt like we were underserved. But then I realized, gosh, it's really important to have all sides of the conversation there, and diversity and inclusivity, and this is sex and everybody has it, so let's make it available for everybody. But we do use the ladies' night mentality in our marketing. So we look to bring in women from the ages of 25 to 55. That's our target market, and they're interested in dating and Sex in the City or astrology, and like we kind of have a persona of some of the general things that we think people would be attracted to, and we'd be able to share that message with them. And so we do have 62% women. I think it's 31 or 32% men, and then the rest are either gender neutral or transgender. Um, um, I think those are the male and female, of course, and the transgender, and those I think are the five categories that we have for for that.
Okay. And you said that the majority of people are links. So is that to be
Well, the largest
okay.
number. Yeah, it's not necessarily the majority, but I think by number of members, it is the largest world. But I was actually like, wow, this is really interesting because you really get to see like where does this, I call it the spectrum of sex.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the world, or at least the United States, right, lie in this spectrum? And so we know exactly what percentage are into fetish versus BDSM, Dom sub versus extreme sadomasochism, and how many people are interested in Tantra Kama Sutra, and how many are kind of fluttering around everywhere. So, I think Lynx is the largest. Zeta and Janus are the second largest. And then I think, and they're real close, like a percentage point away from each other. And then the Alara and Avior are also like real close, but smaller than I expected, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So people are a little kinkier than we think out there.
Hey, you know what? I'm here for it. And it makes sense that, you say that Janus would be really high. If people whose sexual world is Janus, like they're probably looking for a safe space to be able to explore that. So it makes sense that, you'd have a large number on the site.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you find, like, based on the statistics, that men versus women tend to fall into more one world than the other?
I had all kinds of preconceived notions before I saw the numbers. And then I'm like, wow, that is so interesting. It actually is pretty even as opposed, as it pertains to, like, if you look at the number of women, right, versus the number of men being already proportionately smaller. And then you go into those worlds and look and see, is that proportion pretty close? And it usually is. One of the things I found really interesting was actually the age brackets. Like, a lot of the people in the sadomasochistic world are young, like 21 to 29. And I'm like, wow, I would have never expected that. I would have thought that's something that as you get older and you get more into BDSM, that you might get like, oh, I need a little more, need a little more. Pain for pleasure. But I was like, wow, what are all these youngsters doing in a world that, like, wow, they just went right for it. And we're like, yeah, that's all me. I'm all about it. So I was kind of surprised to see that. Not in a judgmental way, just like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that. And the other thing I would say is that what is also very interesting is that we have the largest age group of men is that like 25 to 20 or 35. And then the largest age group of women is like 35 to 45. So I guess that's when I was growing up, I always wanted to date a guy a few years older than me, but it's like, it just seems so interesting to me to see that there's more of the younger men than any age category. But they're not that far ahead. It's not like vastly, right? But it just happens to be. a little bit like the largest by a few percentage points, and then the women a little bit older. But I guess that kind of also makes sense because we're in our prime, a little
Yes.
bit later in our lives, and men tend to be hitting that younger. So sex on the brain makes sense if you look at the
Yeah, I guess
numbers in our
that's true.
platform.
The evidence is there. Oh my
The
gosh.
evidence is there.
Well, I guess when talking about the site, um, how does PleazeMe work to prevent harassment and or creepy people from
Yeah,
ruining the explorative vibe? Because I know that FetLife can kind of get a little creepy.
creepy. Yeah.
So what does that look like here?
So I think there's a major difference, and maybe when we get bigger, maybe it'll be more of a similarity. But for now, I think that FetLife and that community, since it's smaller and it's 15% of the population versus 85, and
Mm-hmm.
because I think people may be willing to go farther to get what they want because it may not be available in their area, for example. But we're really not a place for people to hook up, meet,
Mm-hmm.
and then go meet in person. Like it's really more of a resource, like Facebook. If you think about Facebook, um, it's more like of a place to get access to information and follow people and make sure you know what's going on and learn from this area, learn from that area. And yes, you can absolutely make friends and connect and chat with them. But most of the friends that I chat with on Facebook, I do not see in real life. Very rarely. Like a
Right.
lot of them are the people that are far, far away. And that relationship is mostly digital. And that is just how we communicate versus the people that live near me. Like I'm much more likely to just pick up the phone and call them or text them what I want to do or say versus going into my messenger and sending them, unless I'm forwarding them something I found on Facebook. So for us, it's not, I don't think that people are going to be really creepy trolly, but what I will say is that we have our community guidelines. We tell people basically just don't be a jerk,
Yeah.
kind of a thing in there. And there's personal reporting tools. So number one, and there's privacy settings. If you don't ever want to talk to a person on PleazeMe, you don't have to. You can be in what's called voyeur mode. And that way you can follow channels and get information and interact with, content, but you don't have to make any friends and nobody gets to see what you're doing.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, voyeur mode, we call it. And then in addition to that, if you're not in voyeur mode and you're in world visible mode, then only people who you've allowed to follow you can message you and see what you're posting. And so if somebody becomes a nuisance, you can simply unfollow, like check them off. They
Right.
can't they can't continue to follow you. So number one, you have control of who you can talk to. But if for some reason they go sign up on another account and come back in and try to harass you again, you can report abuse or a user, and you could do that the first time too if it was really offensive and you felt like this is not good for the site. And we hope people do that because of course we don't want to ever see anything that's sex trafficking or child pornography. So there's
Right.
strict reporting tools for all of those types of things, but including creepy bad behavior, right? And so I think there's enough there where you're able to be in control of who gets to be your friend, who gets to chat with you, and if anybody gets to see you at all. And then if those two things don't work, then we'll get involved and let that user know that they're not going to be allowed on here, and
Yeah.
um, and this is not acceptable behavior, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's sounds like there's lots of things in place to protect everybody, which I love to hear. So,
it was important. Yeah, it was important for me. I mean, I really wanted this to be a positive tool, not something that caused harm. Of course, all tools can be used
sure,
anyway, depending on the user. But I felt like it was important that we could put as many safeguards in as possible.
definitely. Kind of related to the anonymity. Now I'm saying it fine. I don't know what's
Hmm.
going on, but now I can say it fine. But talk to me about shame. How can I think that PleazeMe can be a great tool to overcome shame, specifically because of that anonymity. Okay,
For
there it goes again.
sure. For sure.
But how can one work both with PleazeMe and also, in their personal life, not online, to overcome shame?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated topic and it's a terrible energy, right? Shame is like one of the lowest on the energetic frequencies of all the different types of emotions that we feel. I think it's like a 10 out of 1,000. And so that's not the energy we want to be running around in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things. I think sometimes we're ashamed because we, of course, worry about what other people think. And we have a preconceived notion about what that is, and that everybody must think I'm bad or this or that. I'm not going to even use the derogatory words because we all know what they are, right? Or that something I've done is just, so deplorable and bad, right? And it could be just as easily as having oral sex. Like for some people, that can make just trick the shame out the door, because when they were growing up, there's so many different things. But then when you get on PleazeMe and you're in a community of people that are talking openly about the subject that you've never been able to talk about before, to even know if that frame of reference of shame is valid, and not that it ever really is, but you know what I mean? We're like making it up in our minds that this is so shameful because nobody else has ever done this. I'm terrible, right? But then we're like, oh my God, everybody feels this way. Well, wait, that's normal? And not that we need to be using that word either, but you know what I mean? In our own minds, we're like,
sure,
this is not just me that it's happening to other people. And this is how they feel about it. And they were able to overcome that shame by reading this book or watching this series or getting a sex coach, or, so they get ideas and they start to, scope out, well, do I really, maybe this is a wrong thing for me. I shouldn't do this one thing because it does, for whatever reason, it's not good for me. So don't do it, right? Stay away from that if that's something that you just can't reconcile with. I'm not trying to tell people, go against your core beliefs, but I think there's a lot of times we make up a lot of stuff in our head that once we actually really have meaningful conversations with other people, we find out, wow, I really made a mountain out of a molehill there. I maybe I should take a step back and give myself a break. And then there's tools for self-love. And if there is trauma, get some healing for it, right? And so it really depends, I think, on where your shame comes from. But I think the key, and what I think PleazeMe will be able to do, is just get the conversations started.
Definitely.
With some safety around them, so we feel like we can have those conversations, and that will illuminate so much and create paths to all the different healing modalities that could be helpful for somebody with different varying degrees of shame.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, again, just sometimes I would have an experience and, I would go to the internet for it. And the relief that you feel when you Google something and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's an overwhelming sense of relief. So I think it's great that there's like this place for people to go to just kind of ask their questions, search articles, and get a sense of, because more than likely what you're feeling, there's going to be people who have felt it before or are feeling the same thing.
Absolutely.
Kind of along the lines of shame, if someone's uncomfortable with self-pleasure, because I personally believe that self-pleasure is, I know that some people maybe, don't like doing it, but I personally think that it's really important to understanding how you work so that you can explain to your partner how you work. So if somebody is uncomfortable with self-pleasuring, but, wants to learn and get more in touch with themselves, what steps can they take, both, again, with PleazeMe and also just in their own little world?
Well, I'm the perfect person to ask that question, because I did not masturbate until I was 36 because I was told it was wrong.
Wow.
And that's why I had 2 marriages, 10 years of relationships, and 5 orgasms, because I happen to not be one of those people that just could orgasm vaginally. I needed double stimulation, but I didn't even know that because I never played with myself, right? I never had a sex toy. I never did any of that. I mean, peripheral, laid in the bathtub and let the water run down there, and that felt like I wasn't doing anything wrong because I never touched myself, kind of a thing. And that sounds silly, but that's what I did for many years. And so then I, was in love with my bathtub, needless to say. still like taking baths to this day. But not to jokes aside, what can somebody do? I think it really boils down to, number one, what are your core beliefs? And this really is, I think, in all areas of sex and sexuality. So masturbation being no different. Like, what are your core beliefs about it? And really getting clear with yourself about what they are. And are they still serving you? Meaning, maybe there may not be so much validity to that core belief. Do I need to investigate that a little bit more? And finding out, if you aren't doing it, like, what is it really that's stopping you? Right? Like, you kind of just have to ask yourself, like, I don't like it. Well, what don't you like about it?
Explore the uncomfortable feeling. Ask
the questions, like, why am I not doing it? Right? Like, everybody says I should do it. And guess what? If you never want to masturbate, God, there's asexual people too. That's okay.
Of course.
Right? Like, we're not trying to force everybody to masturbate here because it should be your own personal pleasure. But I happen to be able to attest to what you're saying, because once I went through PleazeMe and worked on all those things, including the fact that I learned I really do need to masturbate. And now I have orgasms almost every time I have sex. So 10 years, and I'm a sexual being. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't having sex those 10 years. I was having sex almost every other day, if not every day, because when I was in a relationship. And so it's definitely not the frequency. It wasn't the skill of the man. It was me understanding my body and be able to communicate to that to them. And some guys do have a little vibrator envy or fear, right? And so how do I talk to them about that? And how do I make sure my partner's not going to be one of those guys? Because that means I'm not going to really be having orgasms much, right? If I'm in that relationship with a guy who's afraid of a vibrator. So I think that a lot of it is just getting comfortable, like reading articles about self-pleasure, exploring different ways to self-pleasure. I mentioned the bathtub. Listen, start there. If you don't want to touch yourself for some reason that feels uncomfortable to you, let the water run on your clitoris. I'm just saying, medical disclaimer, I'm not a doctor.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, explore, right? Find out what works for you. Maybe you never used lube. And when you started to touch yourself down there, you're like, this doesn't feel good. Well, a little lube goes a long way. And if you're not wet already, then maybe it's just a matter of exploring, trying a little bit of good lube for the vagina. Make sure we keep the bacteria down there good. So not all lubes are created equal, but
definitely.
But yeah, maybe it's as simple as a little lube. Maybe it's a vibrator. Maybe you're not comfortable with a vibrator. Maybe it's a butt plug. Maybe you're not comfortable with a butt plug. There's just so many different ways to feel around the sensation areas of your body. And some people, even in Tantra, say just start with touching yourself, like very softly with your finger up and down your arm, and just close your eyes and think about, how does that feel? Does that feel pleasurable? Does it tickle? Just really get into your body, I would say, and let it speak to you. And then if you have shame and guilt around masturbation, you really should probably get to that. That's why I brought up the core beliefs first.
Right.
And that why aren't you doing it? Because if you try to just go there without acknowledging that you have any shame or, aversion to it, then it's going to be unpleasant still. Like, you're expecting a different result doing the same thing. Right. So I would say really have those deep conversations. And then what's important to you, right? Is having orgasms with your partner important to you? Is being able to communicate what makes you feel good important to you? Because they're not mind readers.
Yes.
And every woman's different. Even if they were, like, oh, okay, now that I know how to do it, I should know how to do it with everybody. No, that's not how it works. Like, we're all so unique. And so it really becomes a matter of what is it that you want, right? So I think so then if it's worth it to overcome the shame, it's because I really want to be able to be making that intimacy deeper with my partner, or I really just want to be able to release those hormones because I can't sleep at night. I mean, that can be the reason, right? I'm having anxiety and depression. Well, I heard masturbation really helps with that, and it's non-medical, non-pharmaceutical. It's non-pharmaceutical, right? It's real. Your body releases these amazing feel-good hormones, and now you're all of a sudden sleeping and not having anxiety. So maybe that's the reason why you decide to put your shame aside, because it's good for your health. So, I mean, it really depends on what it is that you're trying to, or that you're wanting to create in your life. And I think that masturbation has a lot of power to impact so many different places, that if people just understood that, then I think that they would go, well, that's silly to be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
mean silly to make people feel bad. I mean, like to ourselves, like maybe really, do I really need to feel bad about that?
Right.
Is that
right.
worth it? Kind of a thing. Is it worth me
Definitely.
giving up my health and my endorphins and my sleep and my, being anxious and not being pleasure with my partner and, not getting the relationship of my dreams? Or maybe it'd be good for me to know. It doesn't mean you have to masturbate every day either, right?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
no.
it can be once a month if that's what you're comfortable with, or it can be until you've figured it all out and you've communicated it all to your partner and you're like, okay, now it's in your hands.
Never need to do it again.
And he or she's like, okay, I'm in, like, get consent for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just saying, like, it's like you said, it's a great tool for understanding your own body and giving yourself the ability, at least, to be a part of creating that orgasm with your partner, if it's not also just giving you the ability to have one with or without a partner.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
There are so many toys out there. And another thing that I love is that PleazeMe has a shop section where you can look for toy by your sexual world.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of important too, because we like different things, and eventually people will be able to rate them by world, so that when you go to look at a sex toy, you'll say, I want to see the ratings, but only for the people in my world.
Okay.
Because if I use the same sadomasochism and a vanilla person, we might both try the same toy, and I might think it's absolutely stupid, and you might think it's the best toy ever. And we'd both be right for us, right? And so, but as a consumer who's maybe in any other of the worlds, we're like, well, gosh, this woman gave it a 1 and she gave it a 5. How could it be so, do I trust this review? I don't know. And that's happened to me in multiple different things, not just sex products, but like I've seen all these like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then somebody's like 2, and it's like, whoa, what happened there? Which one's right?
Definitely.
So I felt like it'll help people really pick better too. We like
Yeah.
reviews. We like to know what other people think.
Yeah, that was awesome going on there and just being like, ooh, like what are the different, things that match up for this? So love seeing that, and I'm gonna peruse it further.
Yeah, we're gonna put more in there too. We started with the basics just to get it started, and we'll always be adding cool products. So we'll probably let you know when the new ones arrive.
Yeah, no, I would definitely want to know. I plan on my exploration of PleazeMe is not going to end with this interview. I'm definitely gonna try to get as much out of it as I can.
Yay.
I guess a couple more questions for you. Tell me about the site's view on censorship. You guys have a pretty strong stance on that.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say this. I get why certain things have certain restrictions. And
Of course.
we know that Facebook and Instagram and all these other platforms have 13 and up able to be on the platform. So that's one thing. We'll give them that, because clearly we do always want to be able to be cognizant of children, right? But the other thing is that I feel like sex and sexuality is one of those topics where, you start to draw a line one place, and then it's like, before you know it, you're burning books. Like, wait a minute. Why are we, and who's making these decisions that all of a sudden this is not good, or it's good or bad or different? Like, no, I don't think so. And there's so many people that are providing good and healthful services to this department, like of wellness and medical and devices and therapists and podcasters who are educators, right? And they're getting censored. And I'm like, no, this can't happen.
Yeah.
Like, this is the internet was the number one activity on the internet until social media was porn.
Oh yeah.
And it only overcame the only thing to ever overcome that was Google search and social media. And it's kind of like the same reason why when I was selling advertising online, the drug treatment centers were our biggest clients, because people don't want to talk about the fact that they have an addiction issue. They don't want people to know they're addicted to drugs and alcohol. So they have to go online and research anonymously, right? And sex is the same thing. So now we cut away all the anonymous resources, or, meaning make it difficult for people to find things and censor them and take this down and take that down. Well, how is that serving us as individuals for this very important part of our life? So, number one, I just believe in freedom of speech. I think all sides of arguments need to be heard for true democracy and freedom to be available. And I think that sex and sexuality has gotten a bad rap because it empowers people in their lives, and we become less dependent on the system and drugs and all kinds of things when we're happy and healthy and well adjusted in our relationships and our physical health. So there's a lot of profiteering going on because of the censorship of sex, I think. And I think that's a shame. I think that's a dirty, rotten shame, and it shouldn't be allowed. And I'm willing to fight for that. And I just believe people have the right to be as healthy and happy as they can possibly be. And that requires education, support, and access. And in this case, anonymity, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean if you're really sex out there and this is like, you're like, hey, I don't care. I think sex positivity means telling everybody everything about my sex life. Then that's great too. I think that's wonderful. And each of us get to have our own consent and be comfortable with where we're at.
Definitely. And is there anything that we, the listeners, can do, pages that we can support, things that we can sign out there to help make sex less of a taboo now in 2021? What can we do? I know that, Facebook and Instagram have started passing a lot of things that are making it really difficult, in particular for sex workers, to post their content.
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing that anyone can do is get involved. And what I mean by that is, if you feel passionate about it, then we need to take an action. One action can be joining PleazeMe and being part of a community that is saying, no, we won't be silenced. We want our voices to be heard. We want access to this information. And as we are a collective, as PleazeMe is a social movement, both the channels and the members, we keep them abreast on new laws that are changing and what's going on in the news. Like Between the Sheets is our channel for the industry and news about what's happening. So there's a lot of advocacy going on the platform through the channels and through ourselves, through all kinds of areas of sex and sexuality. So I think that everybody likes to kind of get involved with what they're passionate about. Like if you were raped, you might want to really get involved in fighting, gender-based violence, for example. Or if you have children, you might really want to get on the bandwagon of we got to abolish child sex trafficking. If it's censorship, then, hey, this is a new law that's coming out. We got to make sure it doesn't get passed because this is going to censor us even more. You'll be in the know. We also have a crowdfunding campaign, which is one of the ways that we help grow the platform and introduce it to more people on I Fund Women. But if you go to thedigitalsexualrevolution.com, you can pre-buy, rewards points and VIP, and you get like cool, trendy ones, a t-shirt, right? And then you get to go on to PleazeMe and we let people know, oh, we had a new donation. So you could buy different packages, and that helps support us getting this platform out to more people, because it's very difficult for us to advertise. We aren't allowed on Facebook, Instagram, none of them, Pinterest, Snapchat, what's the other one? TikTok. We got denied on all platforms for advertising PleazeMe, because the end destination, it's not the ad, but the URL is what they have a problem with.
That's the same thing with this podcast title.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Well, I mean, for us, it's not the title. They don't like that the person, the end destination has nudity and sexuality going on. So therefore we cannot advertise, even though we're clearly here to support health and sex positivity. And it's the messaging and the branding and everything is very clear, but they don't, the URL. So not allowed.
People are ridiculous.
I know.
Speaking of people, where can listeners find you? On the interwebs on PleazeMe on
Yeah.
wherever you are.
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on PleazeMe, of course. I have my own channel there. HeatherCMontgomery is my channel on PleazeMe. I also I have an Instagram, but can I be honest? We really don't post there anymore.
Nowhere. I mean, especially if they're not advertising for you, why would you post
Well,
there?
it's just that when we do, we get repressed and we spend time and money posting there and no visibility because they surprise we 1 to 2% of our own followers see our posts.
Yeah. Oof.
So why bother?
Yeah.
Like you're not even seeing it. You can go follow me there and you're not going to see it unless you go to my profile and visit me. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't make sense to me. So so we just kind of stopped posting there. But and I do have a Twitter, but I'm really mostly active on PleazeMe. If people want to really interact with me, that's the place. And somewhat on LinkedIn for people in the business and the industry that want to learn more about coming on board as a channel and working with us. Or if you're nonprofits, you know, LinkedIn is a great place to meet me too. And I have a website, HeatherCMontgomery.com, which you can contact me and learn more about where I speak and the book that's coming out and all kinds of stuff.
Amazing. Well, PleazeMe is the new place to be. I'm calling it now. It's where all the cool kids are going to be. I'm definitely going to be sending the link to all of my friends so they can figure it out. We like love personality quizzes and that type of thing, so I know that they're going to love this.
Of course.
And I hope that listeners check it out as well. Well, Heather, did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off today?
Yeah, I would just like to let everybody know that's listening that, you know, the most important relationship you're ever going to have is with yourself. And that it is really in your hands how you want to create your life and relationships. I'm 47. I think you're a little younger than me, right, Rachel? You sound younger.
Yeah, I'm 30.
And I wish to God that I had this platform when I was 25 and that I didn't wait until I was, 40 to start really enjoying my sex and having better relationships, because it is, it can create a lot of problems if you don't pick the right person and have the right communication. And sex is a huge, huge impact. Money and sex. They say those are the two things that'll end a relationship. So I just really encourage every one of you to know that you matter and that it's worth it, and that PleazeMe is one of those places that it'll always be there for you, right? You don't have to be on there every day, but when you need something, it's a resource. And I just don't know why anybody wouldn't want to have that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Heather, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait for more people to learn about PleazeMe.
Yay, and thank you, Rachel, for helping us spread the mission. We love you and we appreciate everything that you do for everyone as well.
I'm so excited.
Yay.
And everybody, thank you for listening. This has been Wine, Dine, and 69. I'm here with my guest, Heather. Check out PleazeMe, and let's keep talking.